that's fine. I don't really care. Also, these are greyhounds. Firstly, I'm not talking about the childhood crushes thing that I posted about a while back. I filmed a video about that and edited it, and then I decided that I didn't like it. The only version of Jennifer Lawrence that I know is Hunger Games version. I love that song. So maybe one day I will post it, but for right now I am talking about something else. Today I'm talking about the whimsy scale, which is now a graph. It's a long story. My freshman year of college, one of my roommates, Queen Jackie, and me came up with a scale to define the way that we were feeling. Jackie and I, one of our favorite hobbies was to come up with categories and graphs for things that really didn't need to be graphed or categorized. We just kind of thought it was fun. Early on into us living together, we came up with the whimsy scale because it helped us define not only how we were feeling, but also the energy that we had for the day. It's kind of related to like when people talk about like spoons, not that I really know much about that, but because sometimes we had a lot of whimsy, but we like didn't have energy to go out and do whimsical things. And other days we had no whimsy, but we had energy, so we would like clean that day or something. It was just our own way of like communicating about our emotions and our energy levels, which it was just us being college roommates and not knowing time management skills or also how to energize our bodies. That's where the whimsy scale started. The coffee is cold now because I took too long to talk. After my freshman year, when I came home, I had a discussion about the whimsy scale with some of my childhood friends. I learned that some of my friends had a similar way of describing things in which they used the term ruse instead of whimsy. And in my opinion, whimsy and ruse are different in the way that we were using them, but very similar also. And so I texted Jackie and I was like, we have to change our linear scale into like a political compass type of deal that includes ruse. So the whimsy scale originally was whimsy to anxious. It was like, are you feeling imaginative and fun today, or are you like feeling sort of self-conscious and nervous today? But with ruse, it like was another dimension. We went from 2D to 3D, which was crazy. It started out, is it gonna be backwards when I write words? It's backwards. When I was recording this and I looked into the camera, everything that I wrote showed up as backwards. So in order to correct that, I wrote everything backwards, but the camera flips it, so I wrote it all backwards and it's also backwards. It's just, so that's my bad. So it started off as a scale. Okay, so closer to me will be whimsy, and further away will be anxious. So this was the original scale. You can like barely even see it. So it started off as whimsy to anxious, and then we needed to introduce ruse. Whimsy to anxious turned into the compass graph moment. Oh, it's gonna be backwards. You like can't even see it, dude. This is so hard. Whimsy to anxious included ruse and disaster now. So already this is a lot to take in if you've never heard of the whimsy scale. I'm gonna keep explaining the history, and then I'm gonna provide like real world examples so that maybe people who have never used the whimsy scale can understand. I'm just now realizing it's also like tilted. So now we have this graph. It's kind of like a political compass, but not at all. So to better understand the way that these things interacted with each other, we had to put words here. Jackie, for the most part, came up with these terms, so I'm crediting this to Queen Jackie. I'm gonna have to write all of these backwards. This is so hard. Okay, so this top corner became... Wait, why am I kind of good at this? Does that say triumph? It does! Okay, I did that well. Is that a skill that I didn't realize I had? I was writing backwards. Anyways, up here was triumph. Opposite of triumph is defeat. Okay, so now we have ruse to disaster, and whimsy to anxiety. And if high whimsy in a disaster situation, it turns into a debacle. And if you have high anxiety in a disaster situation, it's defeat, unfortunately. High whimsy and high ruse are a triumph, and high ruse with a lot of anxiety is a hijink. So this, for a while, was the understanding. But then I was like, I think there's a gradient here that needs to further be defined. We need to add more words. So originally, these were originally imaginative and self-conscious, and these lines were creative and embarrassed. But I discussed with the council, aka Jackie, via text. She opposed success and failure, which I do like that conceptually, but the point of this graph was to avoid like the binary of like saying, oh, I feel good or oh, I feel bad. So I changed the words a little bit, prosperity and collapse, because I feel like collapse mixed with self-conscious creates defeat. Collapse with whimsy is a debacle, because it just made more sense to me at the time.
Y'all, please don't tell Zaxby's what I be doing. They gonna quit giving me the bread. I'm making a sandwich. Yeah!
Okay, and that's where the graph is now. But I believe it is a living compass and that it could change someday. But in this moment, this is the whimsy scale. I'm gonna try and further define the quadrants and how to graph yourself on it, and probably provide some examples so that people get a better understanding of it. It's kind of a mix of how are you doing and what is your energy level. So a high whimsy scenario is very imaginative, with lots of freedom for free thought and no pressure to perform well. If you start introducing the anxiety to whimsy, it's partially a good thing, because anxiety is like gives you energy, but it also can make you more self-conscious. It's easier to have a whimsical scenario with more energy from the anxiety. That creates more prosperity. But if you're feeling whimsical and also anxious, and the anxiety overrides the energy of the whimsy, that turns into a collapse, that turns into a disaster. And then with ruse is a lot like whimsy, but with more energy, like the energy from the anxiety. Ruse has more prosperity. If you don't have the imagination of the whimsy, it can turn into collapse. So that's kind of how I understand these lines. I'm afraid I'm gonna watch back on this and I'm gonna sound like insane. So then with these corners as well, this is so hard to explain. I have not ever really tried to explain this whole graph to anyone. With triumph, it is a full victory. It's something that was planned out to be imaginative and it turned out prosperous, a full triumph, which is opposite to defeat. There wasn't a whole lot of whimsy, like there wasn't a whole lot of imagination and creativity, and it just ended poorly. With hijink and debacle, so hijink is like defined in my head. Some good things happened, but it was a little rowdy and anxious. And then opposite, you had the whimsy and you wanted to go for it, but you didn't have like the energy to pull you through. And so after trying, okay, I really tried to define this. So I think the only other thing I can try and do to help people understand this is providing examples. I came up with some like real world examples, and then also like some fictional / like historical examples. The example that I gave for this area is feeling awkward in your clothes at a costume party. Dramaturgically, if you're at a costume party in a costume, you planned ahead to go to the party, you had an idea and you executed it, but you still had to like take the train or like drive to the party, and so you were like kind of embarrassed. And then also you're comparing your clothes to the other people. So you had the ruse and the energy to like come up with this fun costume, and now you're there and you're just sort of embarrassed. Like you're at this fun costume party and you have a cool costume on, but also you're maybe a little bit anxious about it. So that'll be a hijink. Bonus points if it's like a group costume. That would probably start moving more this way because you would be less self-conscious. Another real-world example I have, walking alone through a new grocery store. Grocery stores are whimsical places, but also they can be scary because you have to think about like spending money and buying things. For me, walking alone through a grocery store is right in the very center. I feel like grocery stores are the epicenter of society anyways, like it just makes sense it would be here. You're alone, so you have imaginative thoughts about what you can make, but you're alone, so you're also self-conscious. And you're in a grocery store, so there's room for collapse, like if you can't afford or find anything you need. But then there's also room for prosperity, like coming up with a recipe in your head and finding cool foods for it. And different aspects of the situation could change it. But just the flat out scenario of like, you just showed up at the grocery store, you have like your headphones on or something, and you're walking and listening to music, and you start walking around through the aisles, right in the middle. Another scenario I came up with is when you introduce an idea in a group project setting that gets rejected. For me, that is a debacle. For me, you had the imagination and the confidence to come up, share this idea in a group project, and it didn't work out, so there's collapse, but you tried, so it's also whimsical, and people in the group know you have ideas, but you're moving on to new ideas. It could shift depending on the dynamic of the group project. Apart from real world examples, I have some from culture and literature and whatnot. So the next one I have is a moment from the film Pitch Perfect, the first one, in which Becca is singing Titanium in the showers at college with Chloe.
Can you sing it for me? Dude, no, get out!
Ricochet, you take your aim. Fire away, fire away.
I have that charted right here, right? So in this scenario, Becca is embarrassed because she's in the shower, but she sings this cool harmony with Chloe that makes it prosperous. She was imaginative, she's singing, she's self-conscious, she's naked in the shower with this girl who's walked in, but she's prosperous. It leads to her joining the Barden Bellas. Right there is Becca and Chloe singing Titanium in the shower. Other cultural examples I have, in the Bible, when Mary was at the crucifixion of her son, put that right here. She was told that this guy was supposed to be pretty powerful, but he's like dying right before her. So she's kind of self-conscious that she told everyone that her son was like really cool and now he's dying. There's some collapse. She's self-conscious about it, and so that's right there. But conflicting on the opposite is when Mary saw the resurrection and the ascension. I don't know if she saw them. I don't think it states if she was there. That is triumph. It's an I told you so moment. She's like, see, my son is cool, his body's not in the tomb, and also he ascended, and also Christianity happened. So Mary is triumphant in this moment, I believe. I was not there, but I believe she was. I wanted something signed up in this area, and so for this kind of collapse median moment, I have in Pride and Prejudice, spoiler alert if you have never read Pride and Prejudice, when Lizzie has traveled to Lambton and she receives news of Jane's elopement to Mr. Wickham.
It's the most dreadful news. Lydia has run away with Mr. Wickham.
I put that right here because Lizzie was feeling good on her trip to Lambton. It seemed fun. I wish I was there. Girls' trip to Lambton. I wish I was there. And she heard this news, and she is not. If it was her mother, if it was Lizzie's mother, she would be more self-conscious because she cares about like their place in society. But Lizzie just cares about her sister, so she's not self-conscious, and she's also not imaginative. That's just full collapse. Those are some of the examples I have. I'm really worried I'm gonna watch this recording and I'm gonna sound like I'm not making any sense. So I hope this helps in some capacity. I hope this helps you. Let me know where you would place yourself in different scenarios.
Catch that Saucetin vibe.